Have you ever wanted to be able to tell a joke at the drop of a hat? Do you always forget the punchline? Our speaker this evening is going to give you some tips on how you can alleviate both of those problems. Mike Steinberg, building a joke file. Building a joke file, Mike Steinberg.
Hello, Toastmasters. How many of you have a problem remembering jokes? Remembering jokes, raise your hand.
What about everything
Most
else?
of you. Okay. You're not as
I don't
smart.
remember.
Today I'd like to talk about a system I use to remember jokes and share some information about how to organize, practice, and deliver a joke. When I hear something that I really like, a joke that I really like, I write it down. Now I use index cards, which are old-fashioned. When they started doing this, there weren't even any computers available. But if I hear a joke I like, I write it down. If I can't catch it all, I go up to the speaker and ask them to repeat it. Now I've never had a problem with somebody not being very flattered to tell me what he said, what his joke was. Now, jokes aren't limited to just people you hear giving speeches. The internet has millions of jokes. There are books, there are television programs, there are jokes, there's humor all around us. But I always start with the card. Now on my index card, I have categories. So for example, I have a title and I have categories. For example, last week at Fishtails, I was up there. This young woman gave a joke. She talked about animals, talked about bears, and she talked about heaven, religion. So I took 2 note cards. I had 1 bears, or animals, and 1 religion, and I had 2 copies of the same joke that I could both use in different ways. I also write on my card, where I heard the joke and the date. So a joke to me is like a piece of history, it's like a gem that I'm mining and I want to remember it. You can have all the jokes in the world at your disposal. You can have a computer file full of jokes and subcategories of jokes. But if you don't do one thing, they're worthless. And that one thing is practice. You have to practice the joke to remember it. Practice makes perfect, like anything else in Toastmasters. The more you practice a joke, the more that it belongs to you. The joke becomes part of you. It's something that's very natural. When you talk about yourself, you can bring up a joke instantaneously and present it. So the more you practice, the better you will be with joke telling. Now where can you practice? This is one great place here, but there are all kinds of other places to practice. So I practice in Toastmasters clubs. I practice at home if my wife can stand it. I don't have kids, Jim, but if I had kids, I don't know if they could stand it. I used to run a summer camp for kids, and we bought joke books, and we spent an hour at lunch telling jokes, the kids and I. We had a great fun with that. You could do it at work, around the coffee machine, or on break. You could do it at social occasions, when you go out with friends, relatives, anybody. You can tell a joke anywhere. I'll give you some examples. Last week, I saw a masseuse, and I saw a doctor, and I had one other appointment, acupuncture. I told 3 different jokes. I told a joke at each one of those occasions. Now, is it appropriate to tell a joke anywhere? No. The person has to be open to the joke. If somebody comes in, they're really stressed out, they're running behind, they've been waiting an hour, I wouldn't give them a joke. I wouldn't tell a joke. But if somebody comes in, you have to read a person. If a person's amiable, you're talking, they're not under pressure, they just seem like they'd be a good candidate for a joke. I tell it. I say, do you mind if I tell you something? Do you mind if I tell you a short joke? More often than not, 99%, someone will say yes, and someone will laugh or walk away with a grin. And maybe that's the best thing that happened to them all day, because humor is so healing. You're using humor is very healing in people. A couple days ago, my wife and I went to a barbecue. I didn't know any of the people. They're people from the organization she belongs to. We're talking about this and that for an hour. Everything got very quiet, the conversation. So I said, would you like to hear a short joke? Everyone sort of nodded. After I told the short joke, everyone started to tell jokes. And we had the greatest time. I told 4 different jokes that day, which helps me remember them. And I'm almost adding to my list. Now, is any kind of humor appropriate? No. I only know 2 or 3 jokes that I would say are profane. I always ask the person, if I'm going to do that, I always ask the person if it would bother them. If that kind of humor bothers them. If they say no, if they hesitate at all, I don't tell them. I go somewhere else. So humor has to be appropriate to the person and the occasion. I had a good friend of mine who taught women's studies. I had to be really careful with sexist jokes to her. She was very sensitive to the slightest thing. So whenever I was with her, I would pick something that I knew she would like would be safe. So it's appropriate to read your audience, to know what kind of humor is appropriate, and to practice in an appropriate way. Giving a joke to me, presenting a joke to me, it's like giving an extended table topics. It's like telling a short, tall tale. The biggest problem that I've seen with people giving jokes is that they rush through them. You're in a hurry to get through it. And even the punchline, it's over before you can blink an eye. Sometimes I look at the person next to me and say, what did they say? And I think the reason for that is that we pick up jokes we're going to tell. We may have gone on the internet on a certain topic and written something down. Or we have a joke book and we've written something down. But we haven't practiced it 25 times, 10 times, 5 times. It's not part of us yet. So the inclination is to get up and get through it and finish. And when you do that, you're not giving the joke or yourself due. So what I would recommend to all you folks is when you give a joke, take a few extra seconds to develop the characters, develop the plot, bring it along, use vivid language, like you're giving a short story. Use vivid language so we can follow along, we can visualize what's going on in the story. Joke is a story. And then pause before your punchline. Everyone's in anticipation if you build up to that point. Everyone's in anticipation. Say your punchline and say here and just bask in the glory of good applause. If you have a problem remembering jokes, try using a joke file. Use a note card or a computer. I always carry around a little book like this where I write down quotes or notes or jokes or whatever I find interesting in meetings. Be sure to practice at different occasions, different people, different situations. You'll kind of find your way. You'll find a person who would enjoy a certain type of joke, and when you tell it, both you and the person hearing it will enjoy doing that. So go at it, and maybe we can have something once in the club sometimes, about having a little mini contest where everyone tells a joke. Mr.